This is the end of the beginning. Welcome to today's show. What a story that's coming out of Burning Man. Most people out there know what Burning Man is. If you didn't see the video I did a few days ago on Burning Man showing you all of the rituals being done, all of the satanic art that is there, go check that video out so you could see how something like this could actually happen, because I believe that this is God's wrath, although I'm sure that they'll come out and say it's something to do with the climate. And I know a lot of times people get mad at me because when I talk about these events like Maui, or I talk about these events in Florida, or hurricanes, that people say it's God's wrath, it's not them manipulating the weather. Well, they have the ability to manipulate the weather, but God also has the ability to pass his judgment down on the wicked. And what has happened in Burning Man is that 73,000 people, as of right now, are stranded, are stuck, are trapped in the middle of the desert. And do I feel bad for them? No, I don't. Do I wish death on people? No. Do I wish that this wouldn't have happened? No, because when people do stupid things, they deserve things to happen to them. And anybody who would meet in the desert, think about what's happening at Burning Man, not just the satanic aspect of it, where all these people go there, they're degenerates. We know the type of people that go to these events, and celebrities as well who are stranded there, or at least caught rides to get out conveniently. But just think about the stupidity of it. You're going to drive all the way out in the middle of the desert and party. You're not going to have any resources in the event that something like this happens. You're not going to have water. You're not going to have food. You're going to run out, and you're going to be stuck because you're going to be in potentially, if it rains, you're going to be stuck in quicksand. You're going to be stuck in mud. And that's exactly what has happened at Burning Man. So do I feel bad? No, I do not. And I thought it was very interesting. I'm going to show you these clips from Burning Man so you can see for yourself. I thought it was very interesting that as people were stuck there, that rainbows appeared in the sky. Now, these people don't know what the rainbow represents. God's promise not to flood the earth, as people are merely flooded out, but not necessarily flooded out there in the desert. But most of the people see the rainbow and think of something else. The majority of people there who, of course, worship the rainbow for different reasons. But take a look at what happened.
We begin with a developing story in the Nevada desert. Tens of thousands of people are stranded at Burning Man. Heavy rain and flooding has turned the festival into a soggy mess. People there are sheltering in place as roads in and out of the area are closed, and more rain is expected to fall today. According to the Pershing County Sheriff's Office, a person has died, but they have not released any more information about the circumstances. This annual event attracts people from all over the world, including people from right here in the Bay Area. There's music, art, and community events during this week-long counterculture festival. Our Betty Yu caught up with a woman from the Bay Area to get a first-hand account of what's going on.
We're okay. I think that the news is saying that it's pretty bad out here. It is. There's mud. You can't really walk or drive.
Bay Area resident and circus performer Christine Lee is among some 70,000 people literally stuck in the mud at Burning Man in Black Rock Desert. Flooding from Friday's rainstorm forced organizers to close car access in and out of the festival, including the famed art cars, trapping festival goers inside with whatever supplies they had with them.
We are not allowed out of the playa. The gates are locked. We're okay. We have enough tuna for a week.
Burning Man organizers stressed Saturday that they're engaged fully in all safety aspects and that they're focused on getting people out as soon as possible. In the meantime, they will be dropping cell trailers to try and get better signal out of the site and meeting with local, state, and federal agencies for assistance.
All right, this is what we're walking through.
Though cell service is spotty, Christine showed how she navigated the soggy situation. Festival goers have been told to shelter in place and conserve food and water. Burning Man was scheduled to end on Labor Day. DJ and producer Diplo posted that he and comedian Chris Rock were able to escape the disaster after they walked 5 miles in the mud. Oakland-based artist and business owner John Serragarte shared his view of the Empire of Dirt camp.
A little concerned about the porta potty situation. There's not a lot of capacity, and the trucks are not able to get around and service us.
The National Weather Service says while it's not unusual for the area to get rain in the fall, this is the first time in years the desert received a steady amount of rain in the summer. Friday alone saw more than half an inch.
In the beginning of the day, we didn't really have any idea that that would be what was occurring. We knew that there was going to be rain over the area, but we did not foresee how serious it was going to get, and that it was going to shut down the whole entire festival.
Up to 1/4 of an inch of rain is expected on Sunday.
People are stealing things because that's what happens when things get weird. There's a little bit of this like Lord of the Flies vibe, if you remember that book, where things just might get really weird. So we're okay today, but I think it might get worse. We've also heard of vandalizing of art, which is pretty terrifying.
Christine says she does feel safe staying in an RV. She's prepared to wait it out for a few days.
Just hoping everything goes okay and the storm passes. But generally, people have been very friendly and nice, and in true Burning Man fashion have been taking care of each other.
Burning Man's beginnings are based here in the Bay Area. It started as a celebration of the summer solstice with bonfires on Baker Beach in the 1980s.
Tens of thousands of people attending the festival are being told to shelter in place in Black Rock City. That's about 100 miles north of Reno. Rain over the last 24 hours has turned the site into a thick clay-like muddy mess, and more wet weather is likely. People are being told to conserve food, water, and fuel. Mobile cell trailers have been dropped in strategic positions. Buses are being deployed to take people to Reno if they make the 5-mile walk to the nearest town.
But last night it rained, and it rained quite a bit for the desert, and created a very mucky, muddy, terrible environment where you could barely walk. Vehicles made it impassable, and the whole festival and the 70-ish thousand people out here just had to stay put. But it's a survival event. Like, you come out here to be in a harsh climate, and you prepare for that.
Well, organizers say that it could take several days to clear out all of that mud. In the meantime, DJ Diplo was there with comedian Chris Rock. They wanted to get out of that area so bad they walked that 5 miles in the mud before they were picked up by a fan. Diplo posted this video on X trying to make the most out of the very muddy situation.
One festival goer captured the soggy soil, but also a sign of hope, a double rainbow that appeared after the storm.
So the story is that all of these people are now stranded in the desert. And again, when you do stupid things, you deserve the consequences of it, right? All of our actions have consequences. And when you go out into the desert and you're willing to, or you're like, oh, yeah, you know, I'm going to go out in the desert in a car. Nothing bad could happen to me. I'm not going to worry about the fact that there's no resources. And when this occurs, you just look at people and you say, this is how dumb our society is, right? You allowed yourself to be, I mean, you willingly went out there. This is different than when the government's going to round us up, burn our homes, and round people into FEMA camps. Now, of course, you'll probably be able to resist going into the FEMA camp, but they're going to try to make it so that you got to go into the FEMA camp. I would find it very interesting if they brought FEMA out there, but of course, they're not going to bring FEMA out there. It's interesting to see how this goes. Now, I'm sure the mainstream media is going to start talking about this and bring in climate change, because the idiots are going to be like, well, it rained in the desert. It never rains in the desert. When it does, of course, rain in the desert. Not very often. And of course, they're pushing the propaganda already, saying that it rained more in the last couple of days than it has in 6 months or a year. Those are some of the data that's out there. So people, of course, are going to start whispering about climate change when it's convenient for them. But the other thing that comes out of this that's interesting to note is, I'm sure most of you saw the footage of the barricade that was put in place from the climate protesters. I mentioned it in another video, that in the video I did on Burning Man. The climate protesters blocked the road so that these people couldn't get in, and there's miles of people lined up, and they were angry. And it was great to see that we had libs and libs fighting amongst each other, because that's exactly what's going to happen in these smart cities where they think they're in a utopia. These people are going to eat each other alive, which really would be wonderful, to be honest with you. Let the reprobates have at it with one another. But what ended up happening is the cops drove through the barricade and people were arrested. But it was a big scene with the climate agenda. One has to wonder where the narrative goes from here, of course, because they were talking about carbon emissions out in the middle of the desert. And again, I'm sure they'll start pushing the climate agenda. And then there's this other thing that's out there. There's some stories out there about, of course, this is all pagan and this is how they normalize this crap, is about the goddess Gaia, or Gaia, whatever you want to call it, one and the same, that it was her wrath that was sent down on these people for their carbon emissions out in the desert, and for the fact that they went through the protesting barricade. Now we know that's all a facade. That if anything, it's God's wrath that occurred. We're out there in their wickedness, as the reprobates were being reprobates. I'm sure you saw in some of the video clips a lot of the flags that were flying around out there. Well, of course, because those are the types of people that go to these types of events. So does anybody with a conscience really feel bad? I don't. You know why? Because I don't see many people feeling bad about the people whose homes were burned to the ground, who died, whose children are missing in Maui. Those same liberals just seem to turn a blind eye to a thing like that because, of course, they don't want to actually address the elephant in the room, the fact that 2,000 kids went missing. And again, I'll do an update video on that topic in the coming days. I know a lot of you want more details about stuff going on in Maui. I've tried to cover it as much as I can, with also covering so many of the other things that are going on that I always have to cover, like Burning Man, with the, obviously, all the stuff. If you didn't see the Burning Man video, I mean, we literally have towers of Babel being erected out in the middle of Burning Man. The Tower of Babel. We have all-seeing eyes all over the place. Monarch butterflies all over the place. Baal worship all over the place. Demonic portals all over the place. Tributes. I mean, it's insane the amount of satanic occult crap that is sitting out in the middle of Burning Man. And people are like, oh, they're just being artistic. And a lot of them is just the same similar art, right? The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse stuff that we see sitting out there. So we know that these people are idolaters, and they're obviously worshiping all of this satanic imagery. And that's a lot of what occurs at Burning Man. People are like, what goes on at Burning Man? Everyone's like, it's just a big party. Everybody's just having a great time. And you just sit there, you go, oh, what? Oh, yeah, everyone's just having a great time out at Burning Man. While there's, eyeballs and the burning of the Wicker Man, which I covered, of course, this is a tradition in paganism, which is really Satanism. I just call it Satanism. I mean, you call it what you want. Luciferianism, you can call it paganism if you want. You want to call it the occult, whatever. This is devil worship is what it is, right? And the Wicker Man obviously goes back to human sacrifice. They used to sacrifice people inside of this giant Wicker Man. They'd sacrifice goats inside of it. They'd set it on fire for their gods that they worship, their deities that they worship. And people are just like, they're not doing that out there. Oh, okay. I'm sure there probably is really somebody in there in the Wicker Man. I mean, these are all, then it's not necessarily a rich crowd of people. Some of the articles were like, the rich, nobody feels bad for the rich out of Wicker Man. But I think I looked it up. I mean, it said something like $500 to $2,000 to attend the event. So you don't have to be rich to go to these things. You don't need like 6 figures to get into the event. And obviously you could see a lot of the swine that has attended this event. No pun intended with the mud. But let's see what the update is now on Burning Man from CNN, which is CNN, of course, is covering it, head to toe, because I'm sure they're going to take this and twist it into the global climate change agenda. So rain caused mucky, muddy environment and made it difficult to walk at Burning Man. They said in an interview with CNN's Paula Newton, one of the attendees said rain created a very mucky, muddy, terrible environment where you could barely walk. You saw from the clips, obviously it's more than that because people are stuck. They're stranded. They're trapped. Almost like it's a premonition for what's to come, right? With what they do to other people and wipe them out of their homes and get them stuck in a place that they're never going to be able to leave. A FEMA camp, which will end up being, turning into smart cities, which they can't leave. So that's the future for everybody. But they think almost everybody really enjoyed having it be extremely harsh. We don't know what's going to happen tonight, though, and that's a real big concern. So this guy's saying that everybody enjoyed it. There's a medical emergency. One person has already died. People are urgently needing to flee. There are ways to do so. There's ways you can get out of here. They said the only vehicles allowed on the roads right now are ambulances. So I don't know what the ways to get out of there are. Maybe this guy's on fentanyl, probably. I mean, God knows what's floating around at this place. Probably HIV. But anyway, on Saturday, tens of thousands of people attending Burning Man Festival were asked by festival organizers to conserve food, water, and fuel as they shelter in place. That's an interesting term. We hear that a lot about sheltering in place, right? Or should I just say quarantining in place, right? They say they think the concern is if we have another rain, and it's supposed to rain today, and people need to really get out. People need to go back to their jobs or, back to the responsibilities they have back home. And if they're delayed another 4 days, 2 days, 4 days, whatever it ends up being, that's pretty concerning. So I guess this guy's concern, which would make sense because we have absolutely the most deplorable people probably attending this event. I'm not trying to put judgment on anybody, but I mean, let's be realistic. The type of people, all you got to do is look at some of the video clips of the people there, the way they're acting, behaving. Give me a break. So, we have people, we have absolute brain dead zombies out there. And their concern is getting back to work in 4 days. If you don't have water for the next 4 days, you ain't going to have to worry about getting back to work. You're going to be worrying about if you're alive in 4 days. Because in 4 days, if you're out there, unless you think, are these people smart enough to capture rain? And, you don't really have to filter the rain, but I'm sure it's, if it's chemtrail rain, good luck drinking that. But they probably don't mind anyway. But I mean, are they really like smart enough to even realize or think of maybe capturing water to drink because they're going to be low on water? Probably not. Do you think they're realizing that they're going to, they potentially, like, the food isn't the main concern, it's the water, especially when you're in the middle of the desert, which goes back to my point about when stupid people do stupid things. These are the things that happen, right? You're in the middle of the desert where it's over 100 degrees, where we're being told because of the climate, it's devastating. It's the hottest it's ever been in the desert. And they're still out there in the middle of the desert. They don't think, well, what happens if we get stuck out here? What happens if your car breaks? Oh, they're like, well, I'll get a ride with somebody else. Okay, what if a big EMP hits out there? Or if you have, what could possibly go wrong, right? Well, this is what could go wrong. And this is why you don't meet in the desert to partake in deplorable acts, worshiping all these Luciferian satanic statues and doing the Burning Man satanic ritual, because sometimes God's wrath can come down on you. And I believe that this is an act of God, to be honest, and a message to these wicked people. Now, we'll see what comes of it. We'll see how much more occurs. We'll see who dies, who gets stranded, what ends up happening with the next storm that's coming through. But these things are not coincidental. They love to just be like, oh, well, it's the climate, because it'll tie into their agenda, right? With the barricade and the carbon emissions. And now there are articles out there about Gaia, the goddess Gaia, which is interesting, right? When a rainbow appeared after all this happened. I don't know. You tell me. God sees everything. He knows all. And when these people are out there doing the things that they're doing, Lord, and I'm only showing you stuff, I'm showing you photos that are just being posted on Instagram. I'm showing you the actual artwork, so to speak, which is not artwork, the idolatry that's going on, where from the Burning Man website. So they're showing you all this stuff. But I don't know what's really going on at the tents out there, and I don't want to know. I'd rather be executed than go to this thing. But God only knows, and he sees all. So what is actually occurring out there? What wicked acts are going on out there, pretty much unpoliced out in the middle of the desert? And people will be like, well, there's police there. There's people there monitoring what's going on. Yeah, okay. I'm sure. We know that they go to all these types of events. Why is Chris Rock at this event? There's other celebrities. I never even heard of some of these people who are at this event who, Chris Rock wants to go hang out with the riffraff in the desert, right? Why is he out there? Oh, well, because it's a ritual, right? Why would Chris Rock be out in the middle? Oh, it's the place. The idiots will be like, well, it's the place to be. It's so cool to be out there. Is it cool? It looks like an absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare. You got, everybody there is like hanging out with the bearded lady, the freaks that are out at these events. And look at it. Who would want to be there? But there are people who apparently want to sit out in 100-degree weather so they can worship their statues and drink and do drugs in the middle of the heat, which is going to make you even more dehydrated. So interesting to see, isn't it? But if you didn't see the other video I did on Burning Man, just click on my videos. It's only from 2 days ago, so it should be one of the first videos that appears under my videos. And just look at all the stuff that was going on there as far as idol worship, satanic worship, the statues, the imagery. It's unbelievable. And of course, if you don't know what the Burning Man stands for and the Wicker Man, that's in the video as well. You can learn about it, because these are rituals that are done and normalized in public. They do these in public. They normalize these events. Same with things like Halloween. Same with things like they're even normalizing the Beltane now. It's really just out in the open. It's not a surprise. But people are like, that's a conspiracy. You're just crazy. It's just the Burning Man. Yeah, well, you've been desensitized into thinking that this is just some normal event for artistic people. If you actually could see the signs and the symbols and understand what they mean, then you'd realize what they're actually doing. But we live in a very naive, dumbed down time period, and everything that gets labeled art, people just dismiss it and go, oh, it's just art. They're expressing themselves. Yeah, they're expressing themselves. There's dozens of people putting eyeball art out in the middle of the desert, and like I said, the Tower of Babel being resurrected out there. Yeah, okay. And they all claim to be atheists, by the way, which is even funnier. Oh, okay, you have the Tower of Babel, but you don't believe in God. Oh, okay, right. Sure. So again, check out my video on that if you haven't seen it. Please make sure you sub to my backup channels. I'll cover this if anything else comes out of it. I just thought it was, honestly, I thought it was pretty funny. I don't really wish harm on anybody, but I do wish harm on the wicked. And hey, I can't say that everybody there is wicked. I know that there's some people that don't even know what they're attending. But again, when you do stupid stuff, you deserve what you get. And going out in the middle of the desert and partying is pretty dumb. I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you and your families.